Unless I'm wrong again, this is actually Friday. So let's end the week right with some more Pauper cards. And we'll start with Predatory Sliver. It's 1 and a green for a Sliver. It's a 1/1, and it gives Sliver creatures you control get +1/+1. So it's not really a 1/1. It's a 2/2 because it also gives it to itself, and it also gives it to opponent's creatures. These aren't just slivers you control. So that's important to note. This is Pauper playable. It goes in one deck, and really one deck only, slivers. But it's in that deck. You play. I don't think you play a full 4 of. Maybe you do, but you play the muscle sliver, which is cheaper than this, and it only does it for your slivers, I believe. But it gives them +1/+1. Maybe it does cost 2. I don't remember. But anyway, Slivers is a deck that works in Pauper. It's not the most popular. I think people mostly think of it as kind of a meme, but it works. When it works really well. But you'll find it in Selesnya, and there's just a handful of good enough green and white Pauper playable Slivers that makes a deck. And you splash a tiny bit of blue to get winged Sliver and give them all flying. I think you could splash red maybe and give them all first strike, but I don't think that's as necessary. Slivers are playable. You could make a Slivers deck, and it's certainly not as dangerous as a Slivers deck you'd see in Commander or even in like a Modern or something. I don't think Slivers works in Modern. Maybe there aren't enough Modern Slivers that makes that work. I don't know. You don't hear a whole lot of people talk about Slivers, but you hear a lot of people talk about one time they played a Sliver deck, right? Like, whoa, man, one time this guy played Slivers against me and just destroyed me. And I thought, oh, Magic is so unfair. And then you find strategies that just work against it. But I too had my one guy played Slivers in my kitchen table Magic days. And he just rolled everybody with them. And like, how do you beat this? It's totally unbeatable. And now, you see, board wipes. Oh, enough targeted removal to take away their best stuff. There are options. There are options that can stop Slivers. But it's still real cool to just play a bunch of Slivers and make them work. This is, because it is in a deck and it's a big part of that deck, I'm going to give it a 5.9. Again, it only really works in the 1. It's pretty good in that 1. It's not the best card in that 1 deck, but it's up there. It's up there. It's a good card. I like that as a start. Quag Vampires is a single black mana for a 1/1 Vampire Rogue. It's also got multi-kicker for 1 and a black, so you can pay an additional 1 and a black on top of the 1 that you already paid when you cast it. And you can pay that 1 and a black any number of additional times. So what does it get? We'll talk about it when we read it here in a second. So this creature also has Swamp Walk, and then this creature enters with a +1/+1 counter for each time it was kicked. Okay. So 3 mana for a 2/2, 5 mana for a 3/3, 7 mana for a 4/4. It's getting worse. The rate gets worse with every time you multi-kick it. I mean, I guess if you have infinite mana in Pauper, which is possible, you can do that. Yeah, you can make an infinitely large guy. And he's got Swamp Walk. Nah, yeah, it's not really played. It just costs too much, and at the end of the day, no matter how big you make it, it's just a creature with Swamp Walk, and it doesn't have enough playability. It doesn't work in enough decks to make this something that people really want to play. We'll give it a 1.7. Our next card is coming up at any moment, I'm sure. There we go. It's Ivory Charm. It's a single white mana. It's from Mirage. It's an instant, and it says choose 1. All creatures get -2, -0 until end of turn. Tap target creature, or prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to any target this turn. The charm cycle is cool. When I was actually just reading about the charm cycle, and the idea is, hey, here are 3 effects. None of them would really be worth a single mana on their own. But if you give players the option for any of these, then the modality is good enough that it is kind of worth the mana. So would giving all creatures -2, -0 until end of turn be that good? Not really. If you're in green and sometimes even in white, you just have fog effects that stop all damage for a turn. Who cares? Who cares about the power, the negative power, when you can just negate all damage altogether for a turn? So it's not quite as good. Tapping 1 target creature, we have that on other creatures. There's a 1 mana creature that taps to tap another guy. So you're getting the body too, and that makes this not good enough. And then preventing 1 damage that would be dealt to any target this turn. In alpha they had Healing Salve, and Healing Salve prevents 3 damage. Also not a very good card, but costs 1 mana. So you're getting a third of a Healing Salve. You wouldn't really pay 1 mana for that. But the idea is, if you have any of these options, then maybe this is worth a slot in your deck. The problem is it's still generally not. Having 3 more or less bad effects is, it doesn't matter how cheap it is at that point. You don't really want any of these effects, and they've just made enough common cards that you'd never really need to have an Ivory Charm in your deck. That being said, I do like modality. You would find a couple of things to do with this card. I'll give it a... I don't want to give it a 2. I'll give it a 1.9. And we'll keep going. For Squire's Lightblade, it's also a single white mana, but this is an artifact equipment. It's got flash, and when it enters, you attach it to a target creature you control, and that creature gains first strike until end of turn, and it also gives the equipped creature +1/+0. It equips for 3. This isn't bad at all. Yeah, the equip cost is a little too high, but when you play this, you get the free equip. You get the free attach. It also goes at flash speed, so this is kind of a combat trick. A combat trick that gives +1/+0 and first strike to a creature. That's all right, except this gets to stay on the battlefield a little longer and continue to give you that power boost on that creature. That's okay. It's really okay. I haven't seen a deck that plays this yet, but we know the bones of the deck that would play this, and it plays a number of the Leonin creatures from Mirrodin, which are cat creatures, cat knights, things like that. And there's some that get a boost when they're equipped. What's the name of that guy? Leonin. Well, the Den Guard's okay. Yeah, you could put it on the Den Guard because once it gets equipped, which it does for free with this, this gets another +1/+1, and it gains vigilance. It's not bad. What's the one I'm thinking of, though? I don't see it here. Or at least I don't see it in the art that I remember. Maybe it's called Sky Knight something. I think that's what it's called. It just is a Leonin. Sky Knight. Nope, not that either. Okay, I'm gonna stop looking for it. But the card I'm thinking of gives the creature flying, and also maybe gives it the power and toughness boost. Again, if you remember the card that I'm thinking of, you can put it in the note. You can make a comment, and I'll give you a like on that one. But this could go in a deck that uses those cards, a mono white deck that plays a bunch of equipment or free attaching equipment like this one, and gets a decent amount of value out of it. We haven't seen that deck materialize quite yet. I think we still need a few more good pieces for it. But this is this is there. I'm going to give this a 5. I think it's probably just an average card in that deck, but it's something that makes that deck a little bit more viable. I like it. In fact, I ended up buying a couple of extra copies of this on the off chance that we do get a Pauper deck out of this. 9 zombie is 1 and a black for a 1/3 zombie. You can pay 1 and a black and sacrifice a creature, and target player loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. He's okay. He's okay. There are enough free sack outlets in Pauper that you generally don't need this. You can just play Carrion Feeder, which sacks a creature for free, and it puts a 1/1 counter on that guy. Sure, you don't get the life gain, but you get a big creature. I would probably take the bigger creature over gaining a point of life, especially because this costs 2 to sack a creature and get that effect. Yeah. He's okay. He actually blocks a decent amount with the 1/3. It's a decent body for a zombie. But overall, you're probably investing a little too much mana in this. And that's really the thing that kills it. Although it's a zombie, so yeah, I guess whatever. Okay, that's halfway. I wrote my hash marks on a piece of paper next to other hash marks, and I wasn't sure where we were. This is card 6, I believe. We've got Frost Wind Invoker. Did I give a score to that? Did I give a score to that last one? I don't think I did. Let's give it a 2. In case I hadn't. Frost Wind Invoker is 4 and a blue for a flying Merfolk Wizard. It's a 3/3 creature, and you can also pay 8 mana to give creatures you control flying until end of turn. 8 mana is a lot, but you already have 5 if you're casting this, so you're not that far off it. No. There's just cheaper, better things. The creature itself is not very good. 5 mana for a 3/3 flyer. Even in blue, that's not all that great. And then also the activated ability is a ridiculous cost that you'll probably never play. If you have 8 mana in your blue deck, you could probably spend that 8 mana in a much better way than giving all your creatures flying. So, no, I don't think so. Especially because, what other creatures are you playing in your blue deck? A lot of them probably already fly anyway, at least the efficient good ones. I mean, okay, if we do the experiment, you put this in, and I use the example a lot, you put this in Tolarian Terror. It does make your Cryptic Serpent and your Tolarian Terror fly. But if you got 8 mana, dig through your deck. Just find more Cryptic Serpents and Tolarian Terrors. Find counter spells and removal. Those are just better than giving all your creatures flying. And the other creature in that deck, Delver of Secrets, can already fly. Once it flips, it already flies. But this is not worth a slot in those decks. And I don't think it's worth a slot in many decks. So we'll give it a... Man, the cost really is killing this. I'll give it a 1.3. It's pretty bad. Aspect of Hydra is a single green mana for an instant. It says target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is your devotion to green. I don't remember ever seeing this card before. It's pretty good. It's a giant growth, but it can be better than a giant growth. That's okay. We like that. This is so there's this philosophy or idea in Magic that some cards are win more cards, and that means that you'd already have to be in a strong position to use this card, and it just makes your position even stronger. But if you're in a strong position, you're probably winning the game already. So what's the point of playing a card that's only good when you're already doing well? And this has the potential for that. You put this in an Elves deck, and you have a bunch of Elves. So your devotion, sorry if I didn't say what devotion is. Each in this instance, green mana in the mana cost of your permanents all of those count towards your devotion. So a Land of War Elves that costs a single green mana, that gives you a devotion of 1. If you have 4 Land of War Elves, now you have a devotion of 4. But it also counts for your enchantments. It counts for your artifacts that might have those pips in their costs. So you can get relatively high devotion costs. Green, especially, green has a lot of actual color pips that you need to pay for. But I'd say generally you'd want the giant growth over this most times. Like, yeah, this could be better than a giant growth. But in many cases, it's worse. And the times that it's worse are the times you probably need it the most. You know, if you're on the back foot and you need to use this combat trick to keep your creature alive and kill your opponent's creature, you might not have a lot of other creatures on the table. Your devotion might not be that high. So playing this gives you a +1/+1 or a +2/+2, where that giant growth gives you the +3/+3 all the time. And I'm saying giant growth like that's even played in Pauper all that much, and it's really not. And so a card that is sometimes better than giant growth, but most of the times worse. Yeah, I was really excited about it when I first saw it, but I think the more I consider it, the less I like it. I'll give it a 2. And we'll keep going. To Bartered Cow for 3 and a white. We've gotten a lot of 4-cost things somewhat recently. 3 and a white for a 3/3 Ox, and when this creature dies, and when you discard this card, create a food token. That's interesting. It doesn't have to be discarded by an opponent, so this could be something that you discard yourself. You know, does this go in a red-white deck where you play a lot of red cards that want you to, like, grab the prize? Or Laughing Mad, where you discard a card and then you draw 2. Probably not, because you usually want your Sneaky Snacker to be the thing that gets discarded, or you want a card with Madness that gets to be on the battlefield. But it's cool that it has that little extra bonus to it. But 4 mana for a 3/3 is not really good enough, and having just a tiny bit of extra gravy, it's okay, but nah, I don't think so. This is, man, it's kind of just want to give it a 2 as well. I think I will. I think I'll also give it a 2. You heard it here first. Bartered Cow is just as good as Aspect of Hydra. Student of Ojutai is a 3 and a white. Again, another 4-cost thing. Let's see what this does. It's a 2/4 human monk, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you gain 2 life. That's okay. That's okay. It's You'd get a decent amount of use out of this. You'd have to go in the right deck, but it could work. White is generally a creature-heavy deck, though. Creature-heavy color in both Pauper and Magic generally. So how many non-creature spells are you playing in white? What slot does this take? And if you're in multicolors, you know, I think this card finds an even more difficult space to call its own, because there's just you're making even more options for yourself that might be better than this. So you really need a mono white deck that doesn't play a whole lot of creatures, and that just doesn't happen too often. But I think the value's not too bad. This is one where, you know, it's a relatively high cost, but I think what you get for it makes that worth it. I just don't know if it has, even though it is worth it, does it have a deck that it really wants to go in, or that wants it? And I don't really think it does. But it's close. It's close. Let's give this a 3.9. Final card of the day is War Flare for 2 and Boros, which is a red and a white. It's an instant that says creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn, and you untap those creatures. So it can either be used offensively or defensively, or I mean, it's kind of both. that's the point. Is that if you're attacking, you give all your creatures a power toughness boost, and you untap them so they can be blockers on your next turn. Or if you've attacked already, and your opponent is going to try to come in on the crackback and hit you with even more, now you play this, you untap all your creatures, and now they're even better blockers. 4 mana is a little much. And I think if you're going to use this defensively, where I think it's... No, I was going to say it's better if this would have more toughness, but I don't. I think this is probably about the stats you want to give. Because I think more often than not, you're going to want to use this on offense and get the extra damage than you would play it on defense and keep your guys alive. Yeah. But it just costs too much though. If this costs 3 instead of 2, or 3 instead of 4, we still really wouldn't be talking, but we'd be having more of a conversation than this. So I'll give this a 2.6, and we will call it there. Thanks so much for joining me. We'll catch you next time.